Ravichandran, when do we plan our test exam?
Yeah, we are in live, sir.
So dates are announced for the exam?
Now the September 21, 22 is the one exam is there, sir. I think that is a week 12 or week 8. First batch is going on. September 21st and 22nd.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Sir, we are live, so you can go ahead.
yeah. So, Vidisha, can you hear me? Or Anjali? Anjali?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah. Yeah. Who is it? Okay. Who is it?
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are now better. At least your voice is cracking, but now I can hear. Go ahead.
Okay, just a minute. Let me change it once if I can.
Okay.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. So, all right. So, where are you from, Anjali? Anjali or
Sir,
Anjali?
Anjalai, sir.
Oh, Anjali. Okay.
I'm from Kolathur, Villivakam, sir.
Oh,
Delhi.
yeah. So, now let's begin. You have questions or clarifications?
Sir, actually, sir, after understanding the language acquisition device, generative grammar, and it linking to cultural things and all, sir, what I believe is even though a small baby may poo or she eat may cry, it's not a problem, sir. But it can very well attract itself to archetypical understanding, no, sir. And it's also stopped by critical hypothesis, no, sir. So I think how come, sir, despite it having critical hypothesis, it itself says it's stopping also. So just because having it is stopping, I'm telling that why couldn't it be archetypical understanding, sir?
Okay. Voice is little disturbed, but what I could make it out that you want me to talk about language acquisition process, and that is the mentalist paradigm. I talked about language acquisition device, universal grammar. This is what you want me to talk?
Yes, sir, that's what I'm telling, sir. So that's archetypical understanding, no, sir. Even though the baby is crying, it's ended by the learning period is ended. Learning period to acquisition is ending by 13 years.
No,
So,
no. Learning, see, that is called critical learning period. But learning doesn't stop. Learning can continue all life. You need to understand two things. Learning of a language and learning of any other thing are two different things. They're not the same. So, other than language, the rest of the learning will continue. There's absolutely no issue.
yes, yes.
So, you will learn everything and anything. But when it comes to first language acquisition, I'm talking about first language acquisition in the mother tongue.
Uh,
And also, because if you recall the video, we have talked about it in detail twice, that there are two theoretical positions with
so
which
it's
we
before
are.
archetypical understanding, sir.
Sorry?
Archetypical understanding, sir.
Okay, so
Archetypical understanding.
what is your question?
Sir, language acquisition device, generative grammar, and an acquisition of a baby to learn towards a new language is what I'm telling is it is ending by critical hypothesis. No, sir. Till 13 years only the baby can, I mean, it can react or be cultural, sir.
No, 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 no. You need to understand what is ending, let me tell you. The hypothesis, the Chomsky hypothesis, is that we have certain amount of knowledge available to us at the time of birth. So this is innateness hypothesis. And when we say knowledge, we are referring to knowledge of language, not any other thing. Number one. So this innateness hypothesis says that we have a mechanism on an implicit tacit apparatus It is a conceptual apparatus. Language acquisition device is not a device. The name can be confusing, but it is not a device. It is a conceptual apparatus, a framework that endorses to learn ability to learn a language. Now, this postulate called universal grammar. And what is universal grammar? A set of grammatical principles shared by all human languages. So all human languages operate on a single universal set of principles. So he's not talking about parameters, he's talking about principles. These principles are available to the child. So we call it universal grammar. Given the preliminary linguistic data which triggers this LED and allows a child to learn a language, acquire a language, so these principles interact with the linguistic parameters available in the environment. And then these parameters are set. For example, suppose you have a child is born in a Kannada speaking family, then Kannada is the primary linguistic data that the child receives in the environment. And because child has universal principles with it, the principles are set according to the parametric differences between from other languages. And this is how child can set a parameter set of rules for Kannada. If another language available in the environment at the early childhood, maybe let's say Marathi, Kannada, Marathi, Hindi. So three languages. The child will be able to develop three parallel systems, linguistic systems.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
And
sir.
once the child reaches the age of puberty, okay, by that time, child has already developed all these grammars, one grammar, two grammar, three grammars. And after these parameters are set, the remaining principles of the language, universal language, universal grammar, they cease to be, they disappear. So what is stopping is the remaining rules of the universal grammar. Learning is not stopping, okay?
Yes, sir.
And that is why, as an adult, you can learn German at the age of 30. Absolutely no problem. Learning is not a problem. What is the problem? The problem is that your learning pattern will not be the same of a child, right, in the early childhood. And why? Because child has this liberty and privilege of having this universal grammar and LED, which ceases to be once the parameters are set. Once the rules are set, then rest of the rules disappear. So you don't have access
Yes,
to LED. So it's not about stopping the learning per se. It's about the whole acquisition process, parametric setting, and developing one, two, three, whatever language is available in the environment. Once it is done, and what is the period for this? It's a window,
1 year.
biological threshold. That is called critical period hypothesis. Once it is over, then it is over forever. And you remember, I also talked about a case, which is case of Ginny, the feral child. Okay, so what was
Yes,
the
sir.
problem? What was the problem with that girl? She could learn everything and anything, but could not learn the natural way of a native speaker. So she could only pick up certain expressions and very limited understanding and she could generate sentences naturally. And why it was so? Because she was recovered after puberty and the early childhood development could not take place with her. So you have to distinguish language learning from learning of all other branches, number one. Number two, learning doesn't stop. What stops? The accessibility to LED and UG remaining principles. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Otherwise, it remains the same. We are all now normal human beings, and it happens with all of us in a similar way. So learning doesn't stop. What stops is the accessibility to this conceptual apparatus. That is stop.
Learning.
And that is why adult finds it very challenging to learn a new language compared to the child. That's the difference. Am I
Yes,
clear?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, wonderful. All right. So who is next? Vidisha.
Yes, I was initially asking a question. So, in the slide that actually in the previous live session, I couldn't join, so I couldn't ask that question. I had some confusion between code mixing and code switching. Could
Okay.
you like distinguish between those two ones?
All Okay, so we have multiple names for language. We say language, we say dialect, we say vernacular, right? Sociolect, register, but these all have certain socio-cultural connotations. And that is why, to be neutral, we use code for language. So language is a code, of course, and code. So when we say code mixing, it refers to mixing of two different languages, right? And when we say code switching, that means we are in the same conversation or discourse, we are switching from one language to other. So this is a bilingual phenomenon. That means the person who is doing is bilingual and he has command over two languages. Right. So, what is your mother tongue, Vidisha?
My mother tongue is Bengali.
Okay. So now, and you also speak English, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That means you have command on two codes, Bangla and English.
Yes.
And while you speak Bangla, you tend to use English words as well in your Bangla, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And sometimes among peers, and when you think that the other person also knows English, when you can start with Bangla and then after two, three sentences, you start switching to English. So you say two, three sentences in Bangla, one sentence or two sentences in English, then you come back to Bangla.
Yes, I do.
Now, this is a normal, natural phenomena of anyone who is a bilingual. Now, what is the difference between the two? Code mixing and code switching. So when you mix two languages, both are mixing, but the level is different. In code mixing, level is different. In code mix switching, level is different. And what is that level? Level is sentence. So if you are mixing intra-sentential, that means within a sentence, if you are adding words, using words of English, like suppose I want to, you understand Hindi, Vidisha?
Yeah, I also speak in Hindi.
Okay. Because I'm not a Bangla speaker, so I can't give you Bangla example. But okay, I can give
Yes.
you Hindi example. So suppose I say, आज मॉर्निंग में हाईवे पे एक्सीडेंट हो गया. Do you get the sentence?
Yes, yes.
आज मॉर्निंग में हाईवे पे एक्सीडेंट हो गया.
Accent हो गया.
Now, if I ask you which language, if I ask you about the sentence, what is the language here? Which language I'm talking in?
Structurally, we can say it's Hindi, but I mean, there are also Hindi words, but
Yes.
like it's a,
Let's go one by one. So, language is Hindi, right?
yes,
But you know that all the keywords, content words are in English.
exactly.
So, this is an example of mixing. And if you look at the structure is Hindi. Why it is Hindi? Because the subject predicate, subject verb agreement, and the grammatical word order and structuring is of Hindi. However, I am using hardly 5 words, 3 words are English. Still, it is not an English sentence. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what I did, I used or replaced Hindi words from English words. So, आज सुबह में राजमार्ग पर पे दुर्घटना हो गई. Who speaks like that? Nobody. Right?
No.
It seems more alien than accident हो गया, right?
Yeah.
So, it's a bilingual phenomena where within two full stop to full stop, one sentence. If you are mixing, within a sentence, it is called code mixing. Okay.
Okay.
This example is of code mixing. So, can you give me similar example in Bangla and English? Code mixing?
Like within the word, আজ সকালে, uh, how do I often use but
आज
in a
सकाले
sentence.
हाईवे आज सकाले हाईवे पे
হাইওয়েতে অ্যাক্সিডেন্ট হয়ে গেল।
एक्सीडेंट हो गया आज सकाले हाईवे पे एक्सीडेंट हो गया now any Bangla speaker will say that it is a Bangla sentence
Yeah,
but
but content words are all in English.
yes so you have mixed two codes English and Bangla but the difference is that this is only within a single sentence so from
Yes.
full stop to full stop. This is called mixing. So you are replacing a word or a phrase, right? Within a sentence. But when this mixing goes beyond a sentence, so suppose you are uh, talking to me
Yeah,
and you start with a Bangla sentence, right? And then something comes up and you say a whole sentence of English. And then again you switch to Bangla, right? Switching
yeah,
happens beyond sentences. Will you remember that? So the catch is intrasentential within a sentence, it is mixing.
makes sense.
Beyond a sentence, it is coding,
It's
switching.
switching.
Right. However, both are mixing. If you look at the large size of discourse, then if you are talking in 10 sentences, 3-4 sentences are from English, but rest are in Bangla. So the whole discourse is in Bangla, but you have switched to English in intermittently, right?
Yeah, like in comparison to the size, like when we are comparing within a sentence itself, then we call it mixing. But at the same time, even if you refer to the beyond sentential structure as sentence mixing, sorry, switching, quote switching, in terms of the bigger speech that we are uttering, that's still
Yeah,
mixing only.
that's called technically we call it intrasentential mixing,
Yeah,
and beyond a sentence switching.
switching. Yes.
Okay. So beyond a sentence, so when you are mixing a sentence, whole sentence from one language, it is switching because you are
Switching.
switching from Bangla to English. So when you speak English, you are only speaking English. When the sentence is over, you are again coming to Bangla, right?
Yes.
That is switching. But when we say mixing, that means you are only using lexical items, words. So when you are mixing words, it is mixing. When you are mixing sentences, it is called switching. So
Switching.
the difference between lexical items, lexical word, lexical or lexicons or sentences. If you are mixing sentences, it is switching. If you are mixing words, it is mixing. Is it clear?
Okay. Yes, yes. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so I can see Sunil here. Sunil?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any question, observation? Any clarification?
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead. What's your name?
Sir, Madhusri Mukherjee, sir.
Sorry, ma'am?
Madhusri Mukherjee, sir.
Oh, okay. Please go ahead.
Sir, I just want a clarification, sir, regarding I have two clarifications, sir. So what Anjali said, that means what you told, that means we have the lad because in your lecture we told that the concept of lad is quite obsolete at present, because nowadays we use the term UG. So the lad isn't used nowadays. And I just want to say that because you told that the accessibility to lad is not there, but the lad is there in our brain. But that means we don't know the place of it, but lad is still there, sir. I just want to know that lad is there, but we don't have accessibility after the age of 13. Is it so, sir?
Okay, let me begin with this whole idea. Okay, this lad is, as the name suggests, there is a word device, language acquisition device, and we confuse it as a physiological, physical object, physical organ. It's not physical. Okay. Let me give a little perspective. You also saw the video of behaviorism.
Yes, sir.
All right. So you saw that behaviorism has a fundamental postulate that every human child is born with a tabula rasa, right? We have a tabula rasa. That means
White sheet, sir. Yes, sir.
that means blank slate,
Blank
right?
sheet.
It's a Latin word that roughly translates as blank slate. So that idea that children are born, human child is born with no knowledge and awareness, nothing there in the mind, right? So we are talking about mind, not about the brain. Brain is a physiological phenomenon.
Okay,
Mind is, right, conceptual. Do you get that difference?
yes, yes.
Okay. So this lad is about mind, not about the brain. It's not a chip which
Okay.
is in the brain. Okay?
Yes.
It's not physiological. We have to be very clear about this is a conceptual apparatus, a mechanism, an endowment that we have got through evolutionary process. So, as I told you that in the video also, that Chomsky criticized this idea of blank slate, tabula rasa. It's a 17th century John Locke's idea, which was the basis of cognitive behavioral psychology. He criticized on multiple accounts, and there's a video why he criticized what is criticism. But coming back to LAD, so first and foremost, we need to understand that LAD is not a physiological thing. It's a conceptual apparatus. And when we talk about universal grammar and LAD, we are not talking about brain. We are talking about the mind, function of the brain.
Okay, sir.
It's a
Yes.
functional apparatus, okay? In order to make us understand, Chomsky uses such concrete terms, right? Like with a child, you create stories, right? To
Yes.
convince the child about certain things. So this idea of lad is conceptual, not physiological. This is number one. Number two, this lad contains UG, set of principles,
Okay.
of universal principles. The idea is that this ability of the human brain, which is the mind we are talking about. So we are endowed through evolutionary process to acquire a language. If you, I don't know, if you could just read a very good book by Steven Pinker, right?
Yes. The
So
language instinct, because you have told it, sir. In the video, it was.
yeah, so and it's a novel. You will read like a novel. It's a beautiful. It will read like a novel. The way he has written, it's not written in a scholastic language. So it's just so entertaining to understand the history and process of child development. It's a wonderful book. So even going further, forget about lad and UG. Going further, he says that we are hardwired, we are programmed. So that's the evolutionary conceptual process. So what happens? Leninberg's idea of critical period of learning.
Yes.
But this learning I'm talking is not about any other learning, exclusively about language. We are talking about language exclusively because we cannot equate learning of language and learning of any other branches of knowledge. They are two different things. Learning of language is independent of learning of other language, other branches of knowledge. Because you need to understand that the basis for construction of knowledge is language, right? So that's what M.A.K. Halliday says that ontogenesis of knowledge is ontogenesis of language itself. So LAD or UG are conceptual apparatus, right? They're not physiological. So they're not present in the brain. Don't imagine that there is something chip or some physiological thing that is present in the brain. No, it's a function. Now what happens? Research shows that, and you will get it more when you go to the videos on bilingualism. You'll understand more about it. So he says that this- yeah, Gyaneshwarji, Swami Gyaneshwar. Could you please mute? Thank you. So what happens? Why this critical period? The research shows that the capability to acquire a language has a biological threshold. And how do we know that? Now, if you want to learn German now, will it be the same learning German at the age of 5 for you? Do you think so?
No, sir. No, sir.
Why?
At this age, we'll face much more. We'll face greater difficulties, sir.
That's the exact answer. Why adult? That's the philosophical question. Why language learning is a child's play, while for an adult it's a challenge. In other branches of learning, you can learn quantum physics and do rocket science when you grow up, right? But why it doesn't happen with language? Now, at the age of 50, if I want to learn French, I'm a linguist, it should have been so easy for me, isn't it? Given the logic that I'm mature, I'm educated, I'm seasoned, I know the rules, I know grammatical system, patterns. But why it becomes difficult for me to learn French at this age, while I picked up 3 languages when I was hardly 5, 6 years old?
Sure,
There
sir.
must be some mechanism, right?
Sure, sir.
Right. So Chomsky is referring to that. So Lillenberg's idea of critical period refers to that. Hold for a second, just for a second.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So this is a conceptual framework. So if you look at this whole learning pattern, and when I say learning, always remember language learning.
Yes.
Okay, because we'll have this confusion about other branches of learning. We are not talking about that. Purely language learning. And let me replace this word by acquisition. I'm talking about language acquisition. So this is a philosophical question that why learning a language in early childhood is a child's play, while for adult it becomes a challenge. The reason is that you have certain conceptual mechanism available to you in the early childhood. Forget about LED and UG for the time. You have some mechanism, some conceptual ability, a special ability that allows you to pick up any number of language in the early childhood. However, after certain age, it becomes difficult. And what is the threshold? The age of puberty. So after age of puberty, why it happens? So there comes this logic that you have a conceptual apparatus which is named as, it's just a name, LAD, LAD, which contains UG, which is a set of principles, language principles. So it's like, you can understand, suppose you have a 10-meter piece of cloth, right? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you respond
Audible.
because you're listening to me.
Yes.
So you have 10 meters piece of cloth. Now you have choice to make a trouser, a shirt, a pillow cover, whatever you want to make out of it. You have a free choice to make anything out of it. All right. And then what happens? Let us say you have got a trouser and a shirt out of it. Then this remaining cloth, what will do with that?
We'll keep it, sir.
That becomes redundant for that purpose,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Once you cut the shirt out of it, a pant out of it, a trouser out of it,
It won't be of that use.
that becomes waste. Remaining thing becomes a waste. What is the waste here in this case? So this LED is like a piece of cloth. You have 5 meters cloth. You took Bangla out of it. You took English out of it. You took Hindi out of it. And then what is remaining, it will not remain with you forever. It
Okay.
will be waste, it will be discarded. That's the conceptual apparatus. So it will be discarded. So the remaining rules which are not useful for you in the case of, let's say, Hindi and Bangla. So you develop two grammars, Hindi and Bangla. You become fluent speaker of Hindi and Bangla. So remaining is universal principles, remaining rules will not be available to you after a certain extent. So now, by the age of puberty, you have two completely developed grammars, Hindi and Bangla. And then when you start learning a third language, then you have to accommodate this new learning within these two systems. And that is why we learn majorly through translations or drawing equivalents. So when you learn French, you draw equivalents from Bangla sentences and grammar. You get my point?
Yes, sir. Sir, I have another question, sir.
Yeah, so that's what we mean by discarded or not available or you do not have access. That's what we mean by that.
Sir, I have another question because in the module 3, lecture 16, sir, you have talked about the systemic functions of language regarding Halliday.
Right, amicalities, yeah.
So, sir, regarding the functions of language, because you have told, because Halliday has given us the 7 functions of language, that is the instrumental, regulatory, interactional. So I have a question, sir. Can we say that in any way Halliday's functions of language overlaps with Jacobson's functions of language?
Yeah. See, let me tell you, when we talk about a particular theory or a particular postulate, it doesn't mean that this is exclusive. Look at, for that matter, Chomsky's idea of LADUG or language acquisition process and cognitive behaviorist idea. Though they are different, but they are not exclusive. What happened in behaviorist theory? They talk about stimulus response.
Yes.
Chomsky also talks about stimulus response, but not the way they talk. Right? Behaviorist says that this is a stimulus response chain, operant conditioning, negative enforcement, positive enforcement.
Yes.
Chomsky says that no, this is a 360-degree autonomous learning process. So stimulus is important, input is important, but input is required for only triggering the learning process. In behaviorism, they say that every output will have a corresponding input.
Yes.
But Chomsky discards. So systemic functions, when we talk about, see, you need to understand the evolution of a discipline. So if a new theory comes, it doesn't come out of blue. It is a continuation and extension of the older version of the theory. Right? So Halliday's functions are little extended and developed, but they are not exclusive. Jacobson's and Halliday's functions are not exclusive with each other. There is a huge overlap.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And
All right.
another,
Yeah, go ahead.
another thing is in the style register part. So, sir, you have said regarding as the register as formality scale regarding, because you have told about the Martin juice, the frozen one, the formal, the consultative. Sir, will you please explain a bit another thing, the formality scale, because I am a bit confused about it, sir.
See, register and style are different. Okay. I remember I just said language, variety, vernacular, standard, dialect, sociolect, register, style. These are all the names, and they have got different socio-cultural connotations. So when you say register, registers are language according to the usage.
Yes.
Dialect is according to the user, and this is according to the use. So register refers to domain specific variety which is understood by people in the same domain. So we have medical register. So when two doctors talk, they are also using English. They're not talking in an alien language, right?
Yes.
But for a commoner, it becomes so difficult to understand these medical terms. Right? Similarly, two engineers, two technicians, they talk in terms of technical words and jargon. And this variety that they talk in, name is language, name is English, right? Language name is English. So they're talking in English, but they will use terms and phraseologies which are not common and highly used by the commoners, understood by the commoners. So you have to be in the field to understand what they are talking. Am I clear?
Yes.
So that is domain is a specific variety which is used by people in the same domain, understood by the people in the same domain. That's called register. When we come to a style is language use. It refers to degree of formality. So the same person using the same language uses it differently at different occasions. So when you talk to your friends in a cafeteria, you'll be highly casual.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
So you are the same person using the same language, but the style is highly casual. Okay, when you come home, talk to your mother, siblings, right? Your family members, you will be casual, but not like you were casual with your close friend. Am I
Yes.
clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you go to marketplace, you go meet people outside. So you will be semi-formal, not very formal, but semi-formal. So
Yes.
you'll not be as casual as you are in the family. Right?
Yes.
And when you are giving a lecture in a classroom, you'll be highly formal. Then, when you are speaking on a religious gathering, right? So you are not changing the language. What you are changing?
We are changing the register, sir. The style, we are changing the style, sir.
Both. You are changing register as well as style. Why register? Suppose I'm talking about nirvana,
Hmm.
right? In a religious gathering, I'm
Yes.
talking about the soul or nirvana, the Hindu philosophy. My language will be highly formal in terms of style, and I will be using terms and words which are highly abstract and philosophical. So my register will be highly philosophical and my style will be highly formal. Am I clear?
Yes.
But if I'm talking to a public gathering, giving a speech, I will be using high frequency words so that everybody connects with me.
Yes.
So my register will be very simple, right? With high frequency words. Even the complex ideas will be discussed in highly simple words
Yes.
so that people connect with me. So, register and style. Register is domain specific variety,
Hmm.
technical terms and jargon. A style is the way I deliver it, the manner in which I deliver it. Right? So,
Yes.
my style will be highly formal, semi formal, casual, highly casual. That's a degree of formality.
Yes.
Right? And my terms and the words and the jargon that I choose, technical words that I choose, depending on which profession I am from. So a style differs according to the occasion, and register differs according to the domain. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And sir, I came across an article, sir, where it was
Oh,
telling that the systemic functional grammar can be used for language teaching also.
of
So,
course. It is used in language teaching, second language learning and teaching.
sir, how
That's why
come, sir?
I'll tell you. That's why, see, okay, before say this, we are going to launch a course on linguistic theories and language teaching. If you are interested, what do you do, by the way?
Sir,
What
I'm
is
a
your,
research scholar, sir.
where are you doing, what are you doing in research?
Sir, I'm research on ELT, sir, English language teaching, sir.
Wonderful. So we are going to have a course to be launched next year,
Yes.
which talks about linguistic theories and their application in language teaching. So keep a close eye on NPTEL. We'll have another course. Let me tell you, because you asked this question, how do we use it? Language teaching is such a complex phenomenon,
Yes.
right? Number one. Number two, when we talk about procedures and methods of language teaching, we do not have the method of teaching, right?
Yes.
And we do not have the procedure of teaching.
Yes.
Over time and with changing space, theories have also changed, approaches have also changed, methodologies have changed, and procedures have changed. So you have theory and methodology. Theories have changed. If you because you're doing your PhD in ELT, you must be familiar with grammar translation method.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. GT method, sir. Yes, sir.
That is the classical method
Yes.
emerged in 17th century,
Yes.
and it has been followed since the beginning of the teaching learning second language. It became popular and got little formalized because of preference for teaching Latin to non-Latin or other speakers in Europe.
Yes.
And there is a socio-cultural context to it, that Latin was considered to be a classical language, and in order to enhance your intellectual capabilities and output, you need to understand and learn classical languages, right?
Yes.
And classical literature. So it was more of dealing with the text, Latin text. So the students were subjected to grammar of Latin and translation of Latin text into target language. And that's why we call it grammar translation method. It was a bilingual method where they used bilingual vocabulary, and students were given isolated sentences to practice. We all recall our childhood days when we learned Bangla English translation.
Yes.
Right? Remember that English class? When the teacher will give you a Bangla sentence and ask you to translate in English. That's a GT method.
Yes.
Then we have a reform movement, and then we have direct method. Right? After direct method, what do you have?
We have, sir, CLT, communicative language teaching, sir. CLT.
No. Wait. After direct method, it continues up to 1950s. Right?
Yes.
And then in 57, you remember my slide where I talk about behaviorism and mentalism?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Skinner, B.F. Skinner, sir.
Yes. So if you talk about language teaching, for the first time, audiolingual method was introduced.
Yes, audiolingual, sorry, sir. Yes.
And audiolingual method was based on behaviorist theory of learning. And that is why, how this theory is practiced? Now, recall the behaviorist method of language acquisition and how it is practiced in the class, how it is used for language teaching. That beget pattern drill practices.
Drill method.
You get that?
Yes.
So that's the outcome of this theory, behaviorist theory, cognitive theory. Then we have change in the paradigm, theoretical change in linguistics, and how it gets into language teaching. We call it communicative competence. So, what was the 1976 communicative competence by Delheims as a response to Chomsky linguistic competence? So, this competence performance business, right, for 20 years continued after 1950s, and then you have communicative language teaching,
yes,
where we are talking about communicative competence along with linguistic competence. So, how it translates into language teaching? It translates into language teaching when we understand the competence and part of generative theory, right? That gets us the role of a teacher as facilitator. Remember?
yes, sir.
What it means? It means that you are giving autonomy to the child or the learner to learn. Learner takes the own learning, takes the charge of own learning, right?
Yes, sir.
Role of teacher becomes. This comes from this generative theory and post-generative theory, Delheim's idea of communicative competence. Then you have TPR, total physical response.
Yes, sir.
That again goes back to behaviorist theory.
Yes.
Then you have community language teaching, CLT. Right? You remember that? You're doing PhD in ELT, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So theories work as a backdrop for developing procedures and methods. So these procedures and methods of teaching are developed in the backdrop of a particular theory. And in language teaching, for the first time, behaviorism came as a theoretical backdrop. And you have audiolingual method. And from there, other methods also evolved. As you move on, you might have heard about Krashen's monitor model.
Yes, Krashen monitor theory. Yes, sir.
Okay? And in the same communicative competence, communicative language teaching, we study M.A.K. Halliday's systemic functions of language. Right?
Yes, sir.
So these are all in continuation and they are in feeding order. They feed into the other. They're not exclusive, independent. So theory doesn't work like that. Like it's not the case that today I'm applying a theory X and it ends here and now I'm applying theory Y. There is an overlap. Every time there is a paradigm shift, there is a theoretical framework extension, there is a change in methodology, procedural changes. They all draw from different theories. May I ask you now, which theory do we follow today in 2024 for language teaching?
Sir, mainly since I work in Bangla medium school, sir. So basically, what I have seen in my class observation is that still now two methods are being followed by the teachers. That is, still now GT is being followed, and still now the drilling method is also.
Let me tell you. Now we are talking about post method, right? We are talking about post method,
Yes.
no method at all.
Yeah.
Teacher becomes a T20 player. You can hit in any direction, right? So for academic discussions, we talked about methods and theories, but ultimately, teacher is the sole decision maker in the classroom transaction. Like you are working in bilingual schools where two languages are being taught or English is being taught through Bangla. Of course, GT remains the age-old tested method. We criticize GT, but we use GT in the
Yes,
classroom.
sir. Yes, sir.
Partly, we also use audio-lingual methods.
Yes, sir.
Partly, we also use direct method. Partly, we also use communicative language teaching.
And so that is called, so that now it is called eclecticism, because whatever this they call the eclectic methods, because they are taking from anywhere.
Yeah, we have moved ahead. Now we are calling it post method. Okay. We are talking about post method. That means no method at all. It's a, like you look at you have. Sunil, your mic is disturbing. You have a question?
Sir, first of all, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, not exactly question, but sir, you said the post method. So, I mean, may I assume that this is advanced level of this eclectic method or mixed method? I mean,
First
ahead of
and
all this.
first and foremost, let us get out of this idea
Okay.
that every method has to be justified in terms of the earlier method.
Okay.
Okay. Let us take them as various branches of a big banyan tree. Now, if you look at an old tree, old banyan tree, and roots coming from the branches to the ground, after an extent, it becomes very difficult to make sure that whether it is a thickened root or a branch. See that?
Yes, sir.
So it's such an overlap. So eclectic method, whatever you name it, we cannot draw a line where it one ends and the other begins. Am I right?
Yes, sir. So you mean to
So
say, sir,
what
this is continuous process, right?
it is
So we are
evolution. Yeah, it is evolutionary process. It is evolving every day. Now, somebody may like to work on the impact of digital revolution on language teaching. Suddenly, this whole discussion goes into a different direction. You were assuming a teacher student physical presence in a classroom. Today, we have digital media. So students are not only exposed to the language, target language in classroom, but also at home, at anywhere, through in terms of internet and social media. Now look at English learning for that matter. So English is not only available in the classroom like us when we were studying. We had only one resource, that was our teacher in the classroom. But today, even if you don't go to classroom, and even if you don't attend any English speaking course, because of the technological interventions, so deep penetration, that English is all over. So this whole learning becomes 360-degree learning in digital space. So you have no idea how it is coming to us. So these are all research objects and academic discussions. But in practice, pragmatically, and Madhushri will have this experience because she's working with Bangla medium schools, that it's very difficult to draw a line which method end where and which method begins from where. Am I right, Madhu?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let's not assign a value whether which one is advanced, which one is little
Okay.
advanced, or she is superior or inferior. It's all about time and space. In
Okay.
different time and space, we had different approaches and methods. And according to the new demands after what we call blending of real and virtual spaces, time has changed. So we have gone beyond the frontiers of time and space. We have transcended the limits of time and space because of this media. Now the learning has changed, teaching has changed, reception has changed, input has changed. So it's a very complex thing.
Sir, is Creole morphologically present, sir?
Creole, sorry,
Is Creole morphologically present, sir?
where?
I'm asking, sir, is it writable, sir?
No, more. What do you mean by morphologically present? Everything, every language is morphologically present. Morphology is a level of representation, and it is in all human languages. Now, you want to understand what is Creole? I can explain. But this sentence doesn't make any sense when you say Creole is morphologically present.
Sir,
Because
it's used only between two officials, no, sir.
no, not official. You go to the video again about Pidgin and Creole.
Okay.
And you need to understand that Pidgin is a restricted code or language developed between two communities where no language is common, no code is common. So they have a contact, and that contact is a prolonged contact for a longer period of time. And in order to meet their communication needs and interaction, they develop a code. This code is a restricted code. Why restricted? Because nobody is the native speaker of this code. This is an artificial code developed out of the need for the communication requirement of communities where no language is common. That's called Pidgin. When over a period of time, this Pidgin gets enriched, and we call it extended Pidgin. This extended Pidgin continues for some time, and after a substantial time, the next generation acquires this extended Pidgin, and it is called Creole. So Creole is a nativized version of standard Pidgin. When children start speaking this variety of extended Pidgin, it is named as Creole. Number two. Number three, Pidgin is not a mother tongue of any community, anyone, but Creole becomes mother tongue of the next generation. So it is a nativized variety. And then it develops, continues developing. For example, in India, there is a community in Nagaland and Assam border, and the language is called Nagamese. And why it is called Nagamese? Because it was earlier a Pidgin born out of Assamese and Naga contact. It was called Nagamese. And after few years, one or two generations, small kids, newly born kids, started acquiring this variety as their mother tongue because their parents were speaking this. And this is how they acquired it. And now Nagamese is a Creole. Now, when we say Creole, because it is a mixed language, one language which is the superordinate language of the influential community, and the other language is subordinate language. So one is superordinate, another is subordinate. It's a mixed language. And it gets a different. So let's say language X and language Y come in contact for a longer period of time, and this contact is prolonged. Then you'll have a third language, neither X nor Y completely, but a mix of the two, in which, depending on which community or which speech community is influential, powerful, controls, the structures will be of that. It may be the structure of Y and words from the X, or a structure of X majorly and word from the Y. And this is how this third language developed. This is called Creole only when it is nativized. Otherwise, it is extended pidgin. Extended pidgin becomes nativized and it is called Creole. Right? So it's a full-fledged developed language. It's a mixed language, but developed language. And
Yes,
it's
sir.
not spoken between officials, anyone, any community member. So Nagamese is the best example in India. You'll find a number of English-based Creoles in Africa, French-based Creoles in French colonies, Portuguese-based Creoles in Portuguese colonies, right? So it's a worldwide phenomenon. In India, we have Nagamese. In India, we have Hindi-based Creoles in Andaman Nicobar Islands. So this is a natural process, and it is about this whole speech community that speaks. It's not only about officials. And it's not only about morphology, it's about phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, all levels. All right, Anjali?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And thank you,
That
sir.
means that means you're not watching the video closely. You're missing the point then. Right? Watch it again.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
And sir, I
Namaste.
have a request, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, will you please tell those NPTEL office, to go a bit slow, sir, because there are so many videos, we have so many slides, and they're running so fast that I couldn't keep pace, sir, because I have to watch the thing, I have to take down the notes. So there, it's such
I
cumbersome, sir.
see these are mechanized program videos. So it's not in their hand to make it faster or slower. Number one, it's like movie. When you watch a movie, you have to follow it, otherwise you miss certain things. That's why you have to replay it. You also get the text plus every alternative Friday. That's why we are meeting. Because on certain points we can elaborate. You can replay, right?
Yes, sir, but still, just see in week 4, sir, in module 4, you have more than 7 videos or 8 videos, sir. I just, because those are lengthy videos, because I have to pause at time, I have to take the notes. So I have, because uh, at the end we are being given with the lecture notes, so I have to take those notes, and I have to go through the videos, and it is such a long process, sir. At the end of the day, I just could cover only a single video or a single total lecture notes. So it is so
Yeah,
cumbersome,
that
sir.
is that is why. See, these technologies take a toll, right? We are talking now, though through technology, but at least we are discussing, interacting. So we cannot do anything about the speed of the video, and also there is a format because the course has to be covered within a time frame. So they're also helpless. They will put those number of videos. I'm also adding 8 more videos to the course. So this speed will be even higher. So, but fortunately, you have this option to replay, pause, and listen to it according to your own convenience. So that option is there. But unfortunately, there are certain things that we have to cope up with. That's a speed. But I suggest that, like today, you come to live sessions. I would love to talk to all of you. You come to live sessions, and we will discuss certain points that you feel that you need to be that need to be discussed. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
yes. So just for the previous student, I want to say this is also available on YouTube. So
Yeah.
that maybe you can slow down the speed of your lecture. So
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
So I just want to tell you, I'm not directly from the linguistic field, but I'm more interested in the translations and the origin of languages.
Okay.
And I found your lectures amazing. I
Okay.
fall in love with your lectures since the beginning, so I didn't leave any lecture. I had a question.
Yeah.
There any research in language acquisition done in a context of Indian grammarians like Bhartrihari's Vakya Pradipa and all these philosophical theories of how the beginning of the language, because the India is very famous for its Brahma Shabda, Nad Brahma,
Yeah.
Shabd Brahma and Nad Brahma. So
Yeah.
like, was there
There,
any research done in that?
I'll tell you. There are two sections of your answer. Let me tell you that the Indian language tradition or linguistic tradition is the oldest one in the human civilization. Right in Rig Veda. I mean, there are two civilizations which talked about language as a subject, and they tried to theorize and formalize understanding of language. One is called Indian tradition, the other is Greek tradition. But as you know, because you are into it, as you know that Paninian Ashtadhyayi was written 600 BCE, right? And 1 BCE, you find Greeks' arrival with the discussion on language. And that too, Greeks' approach towards language was not specifically language as an object of learning and an object of discussion, but it is more of a speculative. Aristotle, for example, Socrates, for example, the Republic, Poetics, all these works by Greeks, they have intermittent, references to language. Like, for example, they talk about parts of speech, certain Aristotelian categories. That's it. But if you look at Indian tradition, even Rig Veda, which is 1500 BC to 1000 BC, before Common Era, I'm talking. Rig Veda has more than the huge reference to language and linguistics. If you look at the Indian system, and all these are talking in terms of research. There is not one single research, it's a huge volume of research. So we developed six auxiliary sciences to understand Vedas, and we call them Vedam. Right? And out of six, four are dedicated to language and linguistics. And what are these? Poetics. Right? So we have Siksha, which is the science of sounds. Vyakarana, which is grammar. Chanda, which is poetic meters. And Nirukta, which is etymology. And no more to Kalpa and Dharma Shastra. So out of six auxiliary sciences, four are dedicated to language. That's the level of detailing that we did. Much before any civilization in the human history even started working on this. By the time Panini had written his Ashtadhyayi, right? World had no idea about language and linguistic science can be studied in this detailed way. Panini, Ashtadhyayi, I don't have to tell you. Then you have Patanjali, Yasaka, Bhartari, right? Vamana, up to 11th century. Buddhist scholars and Jain scholars, they also contributed. Now, unfortunately, because of more than 1,000 years of colonization, right, we slept into amnesia. Then this Sanskrit was discovered by Europeans again, and the Sanskrit tradition was discovered by Europeans again in early mid 17th century and onwards, and it gets momentum in mid 18th and whole 19th century. Then what happens? You find people like Max Muller, Schopenhauer, Augustus Schleicher, right? Karl Werner, Jacob Grimes. These are all European scholars who worked on Indian tradition, and the European linguistic theory developed out of it. So even behaviorists like Leonard Bloomfield was heavily influenced by Paninian tradition. And some of you may be aware of structuralism given by Ferdinand de Saussure. Saussure did his PhD on Sasti Sheshe Karaka theory of Panini in University of Leipzig, and he was teaching in the University of Geneva. a Swiss linguist. So there are ample amount of research available on Indian tradition, in Sanskrit grammatical tradition, comparative philology, right? And what you see, as I told you in the beginning also, that the theories that we see today are the product of an evolutionary process. So, for example, a taxonomist like Bloomfield, for example, a structuralist like Saussure, for example, behaviorist theory, cognitive theory. Look at the Chomsky idea of LAD and UG, that a child is born with a device. Do you refer to Mahabharata, where you have a character called Abhimanyu, who had learned the art of combat in his mother's womb? You remember that story?
Yes.
It's very complicated. So we cannot draw lines in history of development of ideas, that this ended here, this began here. You search, you'll find a lot of, like George Cardona has worked on Paninian grammar. People like George Cardona in the modern times, in our times. And there's a very good volume available. Indians don't work on their own heritage. We don't work on our own heritage. We look for some European and some European theory to tell us that how great we were, and we don't do anything about it. We just talk about it. And that's the reason why nobody reads Panini, Patanjali, Bhartari. We know the names. We know the names of their books. But very few people have even seen the text, worked on the text. So we want to have a ready-made framework of analysis of these things, and we refer to secondary, tertiary references. But I suggest that if you are really interested, start from the original text, right? It will be wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you please put the list of recommended readings in the course?
In the social linguistics course?
Yes. Yes. Because
I'm sitting on my table. Look at this book.
okay.
This is called R.A. Hudson's book.
No.
It is R.A. Hudson, published by Cambridge University.
No.
Very good book called Social Linguistics. Then you have Fasholt's book, Social Linguistics, Introduction to Social Linguistics. Then you have Wadrow and what is it, the other name? Do I have the book here? Let me check if I have the book here. I have also referred to a book on Handbook of Social Linguistics. I'm not Wado and the other person. There is a book by Uriel Van Rijk about social linguistics. If you want to study stratification of languages, William Lebov, there's a book. You just search by names I have mentioned in my slides, and you'll see the publications, right, on Google.
No, I did that, and there was like hundreds more
There are
publications.
thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands.
So then that's
So
why
this
I'm
is
asking you
okay.
for
That's why
the.
that's why this is a very preliminary basic book
Okay.
by R.A. Hudson, Social Linguistics.
Okay.
And it costs a price of one farm fresh pizza.
Hmm. Thank you.
Right? So you can get this book, just one book, Social Linguistics, and another book by John Lyons, Introduction to Linguistics. These two books together are sufficient for you to understand all the concepts that we are discussing.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Anybody else? Anything else?
Sir, I have a question. Not
Yeah.
exactly question. Sir, I missed a few assignments, early assignments.
Okay.
And because I enroll later, no? So what should I do for that, sir?
You write an email to NPTEL.
Right, sir?
Write an email to the NPTEL
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
or post your question on the board. Okay.
Okay.
And
No, actually, sir, no, because I registered very late, sir.
no problem.
So I missed some these assignments.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That you mention it, that because you joined late, you missed some assignments, how to compensate that. And they will tell you.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. So anybody, anything?
So, in the
Yeah.
process of language standardization, so oftentimes we tend to standardize like one variation of a certain language, and
Yeah.
even when it comes to teaching that certain language, like for instance, I was learning Italian, so I was learning a particular variation of it. So like our teacher often used to tell us if we go to the southern part of Italy, we won't be able to understand one bit of it. Same with Bengali, same with any other language. So when we standardize one certain variation, don't we often like this process that we standardize one variation that is documented everywhere and that is used for official purposes everywhere. So like gradually, especially for the languages which are gradually dying, the number of speakers are decreasing very at a very rapid rate. Isn't there a chance that these variables might not exist at all at some point because
Yes.
we're not standardizing and we're not properly maybe documenting those variations?
Yeah. It's not a chance. It is going to, they are going to die. Definitely die.
And
See.
the
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
and these days we have a lot of digital documentation process. Will that help in preserving those languages in any way? Because the language might not live as an active language.
Okay. So you have asked actually 4 questions. Okay.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.